Yes, I think we did it.
Sim racing chassis provided by Next Level Racing. You can check them out at nextlevelracing.com.
So welcome to our day one review of F1 2016, and this review is a little different from what we usually do because normally we like to take our sweet time and really go deep into a game before coming out with a review, but that takes a lot of time, weeks, months sometimes in our case, and by the time it comes out you've probably already made up your mind whether or not you're going to purchase a game or not. So we're rectifying that with a day one review. We're going to tell you whether you should buy this game or not based on the experience that we've had with the game. At this point, it's about 48 hours that I've had the codes for the PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. So it's not quite as in-depth. There's some things that we haven't been able to touch, like multiplayer. But we've had enough time with the game, including the preview for the PC that we got a couple weeks ago, that we spent enough time with it that we can tell you whether or not you should go out and purchase it pretty confidently at this point. So let's go ahead and do that. And since we covered a lot of things in that first look from a couple weeks ago, we're going to try not to tread over that same stuff again. We'll cover some of those things and also talk about what has changed, but really just going to try to keep this at a high level and just say what we enjoyed about the game, what we didn't like, and just kind of shoot from the hip and let this be pretty casual. So I'm going to do this like an abstract and just start from the top and say that I really like the experience of F1 2016. I think it does a really good job capturing the best aspects of F1. It's like F1 at like 90%. You get all the good stuff and you kind of take off that stuff at the top that's either really hardcore or just really obnoxious. And it's a very approachable game at all levels. And that starts with the driving. I feel like Codemasters did a really nice job with the physics on F1 2016. They're challenging, they can be difficult, but they're not so hard that you just want to throw down the controller or, in our case, the wheel and go play something else. They're definitely approachable. The base car setups are good enough and they give you some decent options when it comes to downforce levels and stuff like that, and then you can tweak it from there. And I have to say, the garage is pretty nice in the game. If you do change things like downforce levels or brake bias or some of the throttle mapping differential, it does make a difference, and that's nice. But if you don't want to get into that stuff, the baseline setups give you a good spot to just jump in and just really work on making yourself faster, but also getting that F1 experience. It's very easy to lock up tires. It's very hard to put the throttle down. And if you're struggling with that and you can't figure that out through the setup, you can always go and adjust the assist, which there's a huge level. I think there's 5 different assist levels that you can adjust and also do custom settings. And it just makes it so pretty much all levels can go and attack this game from a driving and physics standpoint. And speaking of the driving, you got to talk about wheels and force feedback. And F1 2016, like 2015, isn't necessarily setting the world ablaze with the force feedback. I think it's good. It's not the strongest, but I don't think it's bad. Overall, I think it's a good amount of force feedback that you're not feeling like you're at a detriment and you're struggling out there to point your car in spots, because that's important in F1 2016. If you go and race track like Monaco, you really gotta be perfect on placing the car on track, and if the force feedback settings were all wonky, then that's not gonna help you very much. So I found I was able to really put the car where I wanted to, and that the force feedback was capable to, I would say, good. Also, speaking of driving the car and being comfortable with placing it on the track where you want it, the field of view in the cockpit is really important, and I'm happy to say that you can adjust the field of view in all versions of the game. Last year in 2015 it came out as a patch on the PC, but you can do it on the PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One with 2016, and it's very nice to have those adjustments. And again, it's just given if you want to go to that detail level where you want to be in the cockpit, and the cockpit camera starts up a little high, I actually move it down a little bit because I want a realistic view where those guys are barely peering over top of the monocoque. And you can do that. And I think that's a really nice feature, and I'm glad to see that on all 3 platforms and overall implemented very well. And while we're still talking about accurately placing the car around the track and your setup inside the car, let's talk about the tracks. And F1 2016 does a really nice job with the tracks. I was excited to get the full version of the game and be able to check out some of the tracks that have laser scan versions out there in the rest of the sim racing world. And I have to say, they hold up really well. Brazil feels just like going around the laser scan version of Brazil in iRacing. Spa feels like the laser scan versions that we've seen in Assetto Corsa and iRacing. Circuit of the Americas, just on and on and on. Suzuka, even though there was a couple corners in Suzuka that didn't fully feel quite as right, but overall, very impressed with the tracks and the layout, and it's also cool to see the tracks updated for the 2016 season. So, for example, Monaco got a change in the pool section of the track where now you can really go flying through that section, and it's a lot of fun, so it's cool to see that change. Brazil got repaved, so that is shown in the game as well, so it's really cool to see them staying up with the tracks. And again, the tracks are just really well modeled. I just think they did a really good job there. And speaking of the track orientation, there are track limits in F1 2016 that can range from, you should probably kind of keep that car on the track, you're just a little bit off, to you are this far over and you're now getting a warning from the stewards, or you're getting your time trial lap taken away. The strict track settings in F1 2016 are strict, but for the most part, I agree with them. I think for the most part, they do a good job. There's a couple instances, especially around Monaco, where I don't fully agree with them, especially a track like Monaco, where normally the guardrail is defining the track limits. But overall, I think F1 2016 does a better job of defining track limits than actual F1. So kudos to Codemasters there. And maybe the FIA should look at a little more of a digital system, like this, guys. So the big news in 2016 are the new driving modes. So there are now 5 in total. You have time trial, quick race, championship season, career mode, and multiplayer. When I first started racing F1 2016, the time trial was definitely my favorite mode. I spent a lot of time there. I love just banging out quick laps and trying to move myself up on the leaderboard, and it's a lot of fun, just you versus the track and enjoying the physics of the game. I like that a lot. But I eventually got to doing more races, and I have to say, that's a lot of fun too. There's definitely something to racing in a full field of F1 cars with having all different liveries and a team and an environment and blasting your way up the Rouge in the rain. I mean, that is pretty intense. And part of the reason why it's intense is you're going against the AI, which, let's talk about the AI. So the AI has some really good things going for it and some not so good things. So at times the AI does some really cool moves. There was one time where I was at Suzuka, and I believe one of the Haas's went to pass me, and they pulled out and they kind of blocked the inside line. They went into the corner and they got their tires dirty, and they went off the track because of that. And that was really cool. And there's some other moves they've made that it's like, okay, I see that in the races, and it's cool that's replicated here in the game. But there are times when the AI does some goofy stuff, like severely brake checking for no good reason when it's just a solo car. And then probably most noticeable of all, the AI can really snake out there on the track. Once you get racing with them, they seem to loosen up a little bit, but if you're not directly racing with the cars, or catching up to a pack, or just you get past a bunch of cars and they're behind you, they really get into a train, and that doesn't look natural at all. The AI, at the very beginning of the race, leaving the line and racing around you, I think they do a pretty good job. I think they're pretty fair racing around you, besides that brake checking stuff that does happen, so you got to kind of back up your corners and be ready for that. But when they kind of get out there on their own, they really snake, and it doesn't look natural. While the AI behavior on track is a bit hit and miss for me, what is only hit are the difficulty levels. There's 7 different difficulty levels in F1 2016, so no matter what level you're you can find somewhere where you can race with the AI. I found myself racing mostly in Expert. When I ran the base setups, I was able to keep up with them pretty well. I think for the most part, the AI cars were still a little faster than me, but I was able to keep up with limited practice and just running the base setups. And there's still 2 difficulty levels above that, which I think if I would actually go and get into a practice session and really work on my car setup and work on the tire strategy, I think I could get to that level. So I do think that the AI difficulty levels are set very well. So we can't talk about AI without talking about the consequence of them making some of those more erratic moves out there, and that's damage. And overall, damage is done pretty well in F1 2016. Again, like pretty much the entire game, you have so many different settings that makes it approachable for all levels. And there is a simulation mode of damage in the game that I always ran at. And at simulation mode, there were times where I wish it would do a little more damage, where you could do a little bumping with your front wing and a little side-to-side hitting. But if you lost it and you got into the wall, and not even necessarily hard, I mean, that front suspension was done. So I say overall, I would give the damage model probably about a B in the simulation mode. I think it's good. There's some times where I like to see it be a little more severe when you are racing in simulation, but it does punish you. And also, it is really cool to see pieces and parts out there on the track, and to see in a replay part of your front wing missing. A lot of my replays, unfortunately, had pieces of my front wing missing. And when you do lose a piece of your wing, you do lose a bit of front downforce. I mean, it isn't, it isn't super killer, but then again, when you watch real F1, you see them knock off all these little elements at times, or the edge of the wing, and they still drive out there fine. You wonder why they spent all these millions of dollars in a wind tunnel when they seem to go pretty fine with pieces and parts of their wing missing. So yeah, I think overall just a solid job by Codemasters done on the damage. As for the rest of the driving modes, the championship season and career mode, I have to say both are done very well. Championship season is cool to pick a car, pick a driver, and just work your way through the different races. And it's cool when you go out in a practice session and you go and you wreck the car, like I did in Australia. Your session's over as long as you don't restart it, which you can, but you guys out there trying to be a little more hardcore, you should just be the end of your session. If you're doing qualifying, that's the end of it too, and then you got to jump in a race, and before you know it, the weather's changed throughout the whole weekend, and it's raining in the race. So I found the championship season to be really cool. And then you have career mode, which is just kind of the evolution of that. You go and you start off in a lower car, and you work your way up throughout 10 seasons in F1, and the whole experience along the way is just very in-depth. I love how you can go and do full weekends with all the practice session and qualifying. You work different strategies with your team. I think they just did a really nice job. And again, that's why I said at the beginning, this is a 90% game. This game goes to 90% of F1 and then stops and kind of gets rid of all the stuff on top that you don't need. And some of that stuff on top, a little bit is that final maybe level of simulation and maybe the hardest core of you guys out there would want. But for the general public, the F1 fans that are going to pick up this game, I think they did a really good job deciding what stays and what goes. And you really see that in the career mode. So up until this point, I've been talking about F1 2016 overall, covering all the platforms, PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. Now I'm going to pivot and talk about each individual platform. I'm going to start off with my favorite, PC. So when we did the PC first look a couple weeks ago, I definitely had some major reservations about the graphics. And I'm happy to say that almost all of that has been alleviated with the release version 1.0 of the title. So when we had the preview build, not only did the graphics look like PS4 quality, they didn't run very well either on a single screen. And that has all been rectified now. Now the graphics look gorgeous on the PC. I mean, it's really that graphic quality that you see in all these trailers they've released. Up until this point, I've watched these trailers and been like, this looks amazing, and then played it and was kind of like, this doesn't look amazing. But now in single screen, the game really does look fantastic. And not only does it look fantastic, but now it runs well. I did the benchmark, and at 1920 by 1080, I got 97 frames per second average. And when I went to 2560 by 1080 for my ultra-wide monitor, I got an average of 90 frames per second. So that is a very nice improvement over what I saw in the preview, and that's probably through optimizations. And also NVIDIA came out with a new driver on the 15th, and that probably helped as well. But yes, I cannot say enough good things about the graphics. I mean, they look, when you have everything maxed out, and I had this on the PC, I had ultra settings, I was maxed out on the anti-aliasing and isotropic filtering, and it just looks great. And all the little details, it's cool to see the pieces of rubber shooting off the car. It's great to see the fans and see them respond, to see the pit boards. I mean, just the environment of the track is really fantastic. You can see the flags waving. I mean, it's probably one of the better examples of giving an immersive experience out there in racing today. And as long as you can max out those graphics on the PC, you really see that. So just can't say enough good stuff when it comes to the PC maxed out graphics on a single monitor. Now, I keep on specifying single monitor because I did try it in triples, and unfortunately, I'm still not able to really run it that well in triples. When I benchmarked the game in triples with the settings maxed out, I was only getting like 40 average frames per second, which that's to be expected when you're running everything maxed out. But even when I turned down the settings, it really was struggling to get up to around that 60 frame per second range. And at that point, with how it was looking and the stretching on the side monitors, because F1 2016 continues to not have triple monitor support or VR support for those that are wondering, it looked better for me to run the game on a single screen with my ultra-wide. The ultra-wide allowed me to see the mirrors, and the ultra-wide really makes a big difference. When I had a 1920 by 1080, it was very hard to pick up the apexes and know where the cars were at around me. And just going to ultra-wide really helped out a lot. So I just decided to run a single screen where I was running, solid frames per second, and everything was smooth, and I could jack the graphics up, and I just enjoyed that experience the most. And while we're talking about the graphics of the PC, I do want to note that I did see one bug pop up occasionally where the frame rate would really tank and everything would just kind of snag. And that probably happened to me, I don't know, probably about 3 times throughout the testing. So not super often, but often enough where, hopefully that gets fixed. But it's pretty quick, and it didn't really cause me to crash or anything. So the next big follow-up topic from that preview that we did a couple of weeks ago is the sound. And we got a whole lot of comments about my comment on the sound and this buzzing sound that I kept on hearing in the car. And people were saying, no, it's the turbos, or it's the electronics, or you're just an idiot, John, or things that are worse than idiot. And there was a lot of that. And unfortunately, it's still here in version 1.0 of the game on the PC. But the good news is, I think it's going to be alleviated soon, because the console version of the game I was running in version 1.1. And in 1.1, the sound was there, but it was definitely muted and maybe a little more electrical sounding and less of a buzz. I still really don't think it's a turbo, and it'll be interesting to hear what you guys say. You guys go out there and you buy the game on day one and play it, what you think. But I don't think it's a turbo buzz. I'm thinking maybe it's electrical buzz, but it's something that you don't hear when you watch an F1 broadcast, and maybe it's something that they talk to drivers, and drivers are like, yeah, you get this really annoying buzzing sound when you're in the car, because it's annoying. It's just period. But I'm hoping that there is justification for why it's in the game, because if this isn't on the real car, then I hope it's not there because it's annoying. But version 1.1, I found it tolerable, so I'm hoping that that update comes to the PC version soon. Another reason why the PC version of the game was my favorite title to drive is the wheel compatibility and the ability to have two input devices when you're on the PC, or maybe I should say multiple input devices. So on the consoles, you have to have matching wheel and pedal setup. So I just switch out my Fanatic V3 pedals I normally use and put in a set of Thrustmaster T3PA Pros with the Ricmotech load cell. And it's a nice set of pedals. I mean, I like using it. It's just that I had to change that out on my rig to use it on the consoles. And it's nice on the PC where you can go, you don't have to plug your pedals into the wheel, you can plug it directly into the PC. And that's just a nicer setup, and it gives you more options to use things like the button box that I have. I didn't use it, but you have that option on the PC. And also, wheel compatibility on the PC is really good. There is quite the list of compatible wheels that Codemaster has done, and you can actually check out our description below to see that whole list of compatible wheels. And pretty much on the PC, you range from entry-level wheels like the Thrustmaster T150 all the way up to high-end wheels like the AccuForce. So there's just plenty of options for hardware on the PC side, and it's more so than on the console, and it's also you can mix and match on the PC. So that was another pro that I saw to having the PC version of the title. So with that said, let's transition over to the consoles and the PS4. And first up, let's talk about graphics. And overall, the graphics are pretty nice on the PlayStation 4. Obviously not PC levels. There's definitely more jagged lines around the cars, but it's livable. It's not bad. The tracks overall still look pretty good. Frame rate wise, it seems like the game is running more or less to 60 frames per second. There does seem to be some dips from time to time. You can notice things to start to slow down when things get really busy on the screen. But overall, it's not bad for the consoles, and I would say it's passable, but it's certainly noticeable when you're used to PC and able to run high frames per second and 144 hertz monitors and stuff like that. You definitely notice it coming from the PC, but if you're mostly a console player on the PS4, you probably be used to it and it should be fine. So unfortunately, the only other thing I have to say about the graphics on the PS4 was I did notice a few bugs. When I would leave a line in the race, there was a cloud of black smoke instead of white smoke. There was this odd pixelation thing going on in my race at Interlagos. And then also there was times when the on-screen wheel would snap back in the middle of the corner to a different position than where my hands were at, and that was kind of odd. So I did notice those few bugs. Not major deal-breaker performance issues, but hopefully bugs can be squashed in the near future. So now that we got the PC and PlayStation 4 out of the way, and for the most part pretty unscathed, let's talk about this Xbox One. So the Xbox One version of the game was giving me headaches for multiple reasons. Number one, it doesn't look great. I mean, the edges are very big, very jaggy. It just text being kind of blurry. The game just not running spectacular. Definitely more frame rate dips on the Xbox One than the PlayStation 4, even with the graphics turned down to a lower level. And overall, I just didn't really enjoy looking at it, and it's not fun driving when you're getting these frame rate dips in the middle of the corner. Also, I had a fit with my Thrustmaster Ferrari F1 rim on the Xbox version of the game. So I used that rim on the PC, PlayStation 4, no problems at all. Swapped out my T300 with the Thrustmaster TX, put the rim on, and I couldn't get anything to just map properly and stay. There were so many times where the A button would disappear, or I would map it and then it would disappear. I mean, there was one point where I was driving and then paused the game And then to get back into the game, I ended up on the view looking at my rear wing, and I couldn't get back in the car to drive, and the buttons that were working on my wheel now weren't working anymore. It was the weirdest thing. It was so weird that I went and grabbed the TM28 leather wheel to check that out, and that was kind of odd too. It worked, so I was able to get some laps in, but after that I jumped to another session, and then it started kind of going off with the mapping and clicking wrong things, and it was struggling as well. So to make sure I wasn't going crazy and it wasn't an issue with the actual wheelbase, I went and I put the 599 Alcantara rim on, and everything was fine. I didn't have any issues. So there's something strange going on there with the mapping on the Xbox One version of the game, and it was very frustrating. I mean, at one point I tried to actually put the Fanatic Club Sport wheel on, wheel and pedals, but I couldn't find my RJ12 connection to run the pedals, because again, you have to have the pedals hooked up to the wheelbase when you're on the console, so I wasn't able to run that combo. But anyway, it was driving me nuts, so that was odd, and hopefully that gets fixed pretty soon. So like I said, this isn't version 1 of the game, this is version 1.1, and that was very frustrating if you have the Thrustmaster F1 rim. So it's time to give our final answers of whether or not you should buy F1 2016 day one on the PC, PlayStation 4, or Xbox One. And for the PC, this is a definite yes for me. If you're interested in this game and you own a PC with, fair hardware, I'm running a 1070, so it's a newer graphics card, so that runs pretty well. But if you have a PC and you have the opportunity to run it where you can mix and match the hardware, you can turn up the frames per second, you can run higher refresh rates, maybe you have an ultra-wide monitor, then I think that is the best experience for F1 2016. And again, F1 2016 overall, a very solid game that I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed hop lapping, I enjoyed racing against the AI, even with them being kind of goofy, doing those races in the rain. It's just, it's so much fun trying to hang on the car. I find it challenging. I like that the in-depth level that it goes to in some of the career and the practice sessions and that kind of stuff. I'm just overall very happy with the game, and the PC is the best way to experience the game. Now, if you don't have a PC, or you rather experience this in front of your TV or something like that, then I would say if you're looking for it on the consoles, then I would buy it on the PlayStation 4. The PS4 version of the game certainly isn't quite as pretty as the PC, it doesn't quite run as well, and you're a little more limited on the hardware side, but they pretty much have all the hardware that's available, besides the whole Fanatic Club Sport PlayStation type thing. That's still kind of an issue, so that's not supported at this moment, so sorry for you guys. But overall, the PS4 is a solid version of the game, and I think that's why we've been playing the PS4 version of the game for a while now. I played it back at E3 in June, and I think the PlayStation 4 overall is a solid way to go. Has a few bugs at the moment. Hopefully those will get fixed, but I don't think they're deal breakers. But this leads us now to the Xbox One, and I honestly can't recommend the Xbox One version of F1 2016. The graphics are just hard to look at, and not only that hard to look at, it doesn't run great. And then that whole wheel mapping issue I had was very annoying, and I alleviated with another rim. But if you don't have another rim, maybe you just have the F1 rim, then you're kind of SOL at the moment until that gets fixed. And hopefully that gets fixed. I will say out of the gate, F1 2016 doesn't have nearly the bug issue that F1 2015 did. And that really hurt last year's title. I think 2015 was a solid game, but it just came out so buggy. And now F1 2016 almost feels like a 1.5 version. It feels like what 2015 should have had. It doesn't have nearly the amount and level of bugs, and it has the career mode and, like I said, the graphics on the PC and all that kind of stuff. It feels up to par where it should be. But the Xbox One version of the game, I it just feels like a bit of a struggle. I mean, if Xbox One is all you have, and you're a hardcore F1 fan and you want to race it, I mean, you can. That's definitely an option, but I have a hard time recommending it if you have other options out there. So that will do it for our day one review of F1 2016, and I hope this review really helps to, push you in a direction of which platform you're going to purchase this game on, or maybe you're not going to purchase it at all. But I have to say, for a day one review that I wasn't expecting to be so in-depth, we still went pretty in-depth. So I think you should be educated and go off and do what's best for your sim racing experience. As always, thank you for watching Inside Sim Racing. If you like this and want to see more F1 2016 content or other sim-related content, please subscribe to the channel. Also, if you enjoy this show, a like, it does help us out a lot. Check out our Amazon affiliate link below and our website, isrtv.com. So for John Sable, thanks for watching Inside Sim Racing. See you guys next time.